Hello, hello. Welcome back to Our Life Now and Forever Part 6. I think it's Part 6. So, I actually don't know where we left off, but we're still playing the demo version of the game. I don't know if it's updated. So, I kind of thought that the last part 5, had an update regarding, I think, the story dynamic or relationship dynamic. I'm not sure. So, to just be satisfied of things, let's begin, I guess, with whatever part I left off. I don't know where I left off actually. Load. Load, please. Load, please. Okay. I guess my last one is October 9th, 1731. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm gonna click this. Oh. I wonder if I left off in this part. Hold on, I'm gonna load again and see the other one. Yeah, I think I've done this before. Okay, so we're just gonna continue with this one. This is another tutorial patch. I'm correct in thinking that there is actually a new update. I don't know when this happened, so I'm just gonna read the thingy in front of me. Tutorial GB patch. Hello! Since the previous version of Our Life Now and Forever, there have been a few changes to how we handle pronouns and terms. Since you're already past the character creator for this save, you can choose to see part of the character creator again to update your terms, if needed. Your preferences from the previous version has been adapted to the new version as much as possible. Oh, how nice! Do you want to update your terms? You won't be able to do so again until you get to step 2. No, I'm honestly gonna leave things in my previous gameplay because I feel like that's how I flow. I honestly don't remember much because I've been playing a lot of visual novels again and they're all occupying my head. Okay, so we're gonna continue off. I think we're me, Shu, and Tamarack are like walking to school. So it's like still the morning of the next day. Your steps came back into a steady rhythm between the three of you. Oh, okay. So what is this? Tamarack, are you worried about going to a new school? Shu, why didn't you want Mrs. Murray for your teacher? Tamarack, does your Omi or Opa know anything about my house from before I moved there? Shu, do you know anything about my house from before I moved there? I'm pretty curious. Who of them actually has an opinion about the house? So I'm gonna ask them either. I think I'm gonna ask Shu first because I think he is the oldest person living in our street for about our house. Shu, I'm not sure. It was empty for a long time. Shu gazed upwards. Oh, okay. Tilting his chin way up high to try searching the back of his mind. I'm gonna have a little bit of tidbit about the story so far about the place that I live in. Maybe there was somebody there when I was really little. I don't know them though or where they went. He lowered his gaze again so he could offer you a grin, lifted his shoulders instead. Isn't that a shrug? Wait, it's that? Shoo. I kind of thought it was gonna be abandoned forever. Oh, okay. Tamarack burst into squeaky chuckles. Omi and Opa talk about the same thing when they have coffee. Wait, what? They talk about my house? Oh, that was interesting. You learned something new. I kinda didn't, I guess. I feel like I didn't learn anything about my house. The longer the walk went on, the more Tamarack's gaze was pulled to the forest edge along the road instead of what was right in front of her. Her steps drifted unevenly. You couldn't blame her. You had done the same during the trip a few times. But you weren't the only one who noticed her focus. Shu. Hey, so it's kind of funny. Sorry. Side note, I keep on like pronouncing Shu's name like I'm sneezing. Am I supposed to pronounce his name as Q? I want to pronounce his name as Q. From now on, I'm declaring myself pronouncing his name as Q instead of Shu. Q. Hey, so it's kind of funny how both of you like the woods that much. Tamarack. It's the only nice place I've seen here so far. She said it in the plainest way possible, and the words still made Q gasp hard enough to cough. What? Q. Have you been places other than the forest? Tamarack. Yeah, lots. They're not good. Q. I can't believe it. I can believe it or I can't believe it. Hold up. I'm gonna go back to the log and see what Q actually said. Log, please. Oh, yeah, okay. I was correct in reading that I can't believe it. And my choices for this, I think this is my opinion about Tamarack's statement, I guess. It's not that big a deal. I think Tamarack's probably right. Hey, both places can be good. You shouldn't try to make Tamarack change her mind. It's mean to say the woods are the only good place. Look on the bright side, that's more forest for her and more neighborhood for you. I feel like I want to say this. I don't want to be partial because I like the forest and I like the neighborhood itself. I mean, they did a really good job illustrating the neighborhood. Q. Q shook off the shock Tamarack statement hit him with. He turned his cheek to the front as he rolled his shoulders. He was winding up for a comeback. Q. I guess I can give you one thing. There is a pretty special kind of fun that in all my years of living here, you can only ever have out in these very woods, nowhere else. Tamarack. Really? What is it? He'd cast a reel and Tamarack was hooked on it. She instantly became invested in whatever mystery Q had up his line. Q. I'm not gonna tell you. Tamarack. What? Tamarack shrieked in a tone so high it scared away a bird who was minding its own business in the tree above. It was hook, line, and sinker. Aw, Q's be mean. The beat of its wings fluttering through the air matched Q's giggling. He brought a hand to his chin and leveled a mischievous glance at Tamarack. Q. One day, you'll understand. Wow. Probably. And that was really it. He closed up his lips, folded his arms, and settled into not explaining for the rest of the walk. Q is such a meanie. I guess he is the naughty of the bunch. Tamarack couldn't accept that, or couldn't get a hit. She pestered him with the passion in her words getting stronger every time she repeated them. Tamarack, tell me the thing, tell me the special thing, Q, tell me the special thing. No, it's so cute. Okay, a mysterious place deep in the woods. The thought of it is exciting. I wanna like. Okay, who wants to bet she never finds? I wanna do this because I've been like being teasing towards Q. I might wanna be teasing towards Tamarack now. No, Frankie. Hey, we're being mean to Tamarack. Oh, my playfulness is showing in the dynamic of this three. The conversation, quote unquote, of Tamarack's attempts to squeeze Q for info, your comments on it, and the snickers that escaped from Q continued while you headed towards your goal. Down the road, some more, over a crosswalk, past the main street, taking a turn at the corner. That was when the widest building you'd seen so far came into view. There had been taller ones, because that only had 2 floors, but there was a lot of those floors. I thought I misclicked. North Acres Elementary School. The name made sense. You wondered exactly how many acres it was. I'm like, same. I kind of didn't see the map. No, actually, there is no existing map of the game. So, I wonder if it. In the previous game, there's no sort of like map whatsoever of whatever places you got to. I wonder if they're gonna show at least a tiny bit one just to see where we are or what we're doing. Like, like a doodle of a kid for the prologue or whatever. And then as it progresses in the story, just to show where they are in the map of the entire town. Like the more that they progress in age, the more the details become like either mature, or it depends on what personality the player had. So like the map would be like if they were being more serious in their playthrough instead of naughty, they would have like a map that is detailed, but like you don't see the details of which like there are names of the streets or whatnot, but at least it's like it's stiff. But if you're kind of playful, there are stickers. The stickers that are inside the game itself is implemented as well on the map. I'm just wondering because I didn't get to have or see the map of the previous town from the first Our Life story. I do believe that we kind of explored the town. Like we went to the aquarium. I'm saying it for the Our Life Now. Sorry, Our Life New Beginnings, I think is the title. What was it? I think the locations on the first Our Life story was at the mall. There was, I think, a restaurant there, but that's like part of the mall. The beach, the aquarium, where I think they worked in. Okay. I'm gonna continue the narrative. Sorry for the side note. Dozens of other kids were pouring out from a few different paths and mixing together under the front arches above the giant door. You tried to stand up straight, wanting to do things right. Then you went through the door. Qiu and Tamarack stayed even closer to you than on the walk there. Inside was a long hall with different doors and a staircase on the side. It was shiny and dull, like it'd been cleaned so hard for so long it made everything even more worn down than normal. Is that's supposed to be the kitchen? Poster boards with a bunch of paper sheets stacked on the walls. Nobody was even looking at them. The messages they had might never have been read. I mean, I kind of feel that because I remember in my old school, my high school was a big school, like a big school. I think it's private school. They had bulletin boards as well. It's my first time to see bulletin boards in certain floors, and they don't really get enough attention. The floors had a checkered tile pattern. Some of the kids around made sure to only walk on one of the colors and avoid the other. And it was loud. There was too much sound from the crowds for the hall to hold. It echoed around, which made it even louder. This place was your school now. Q tapped your shoulder and pointed with his other hand. You figured that was his way to say you had to keep going without having to yell so you could hear. The three of you pressed past the other students, making sure you didn't get separated. Step by step, you climb upwards and forwards. Q waved a hand towards the right door when you reached the top. Sorry, sidelining burps. I'm kind of compressed in the way that I'm sitting up. Hold up, I'm gonna adjust myself. Okay, there. Sorry about that. Back to narration. You'd arrive for the first day of class right on time. The little bit of cold you'd brought inside the school on the tip of your nose and over your cheeks had finally drifted off your face. It was nice and warm when you went into the room. Your brand new class, 5th grade room 24, smelled like people hard at work. Got construction paper, crayons, glue. Anything could be made with that. Side note, smelled like people hard at work? Does that mean that they smell like sweat and drool. For the record, me and my memories of these kinds of like LM schools, I don't remember what the smell is because if it's like really coming from like summer, it shouldn't smell like anything but like nature and cleansing detergents. Like specifically cleansing detergents because most of the schools that I attended aren't really that surrounded by nature itself. Okay, hold up next. There were tons of leaves stuck to the different colored walls, climbing around the windows, hanging from shelves, and sneaking out from behind boards, where some of those things could be made. Oh, okay. I was like, where are the leaves? Oh, it's over there. Kids sat together in close groups. The desks were pushed up to make bigger tables. There was just one chair by itself, right at the front. Or the back, if the way in was the front door. Tamarack took in a loud breath of waxy air. Waxy, sorry, my cat's like meowing at the back. Tamarack. Wow, I thought it was gonna be ugly. Jesus, Tamarack. Oh, there's a page 2 for the choice here? Okay, what's with page 1? The choices to respond to Tamarack's comment is, me too, but this is cool. It is ugly, Jesus. I really am awkward about all the, I think, opinionatedly mean ones, like unintentionally mean ones. Tamarack, why would you think that? My old school was better. It's good you were surprised. It reminds me of you. Adorable. Oh, jeez. I guess it's not as bad as my last school on page 2. This looks like my old kindergarten. Meow. Okay. I'm still like kind of hesitant to pick because there are a lot. I'm gonna just read them, not silently, but like contemplate, because this looks like my old kindergarten, but confused. The other one is an excited version of it. Wow, this is way better than my old school. You were quietly amazed. It was okay. You frowned. I want to say something. It is kind of true. Tamarack is like a walking representation of the autumnness of this place. Q is so-so. I don't think like Q exudes that much like autumn, but the fact that he has so much earthy elements in his design, I guess it is. Tamarack is just really a walking autumn. That's why I kinda am in. I'm excited to say this because it is really like whatever it is. Oh, that's so cute. Yeah. Q shrugged his backpack off to the floor. When it hit the ground, a puff of air came out the not totally zipped top. Nothing in the place caught his eye, in a good way or a bad one. It was like nothing around him existed. Q just watched you and Tamarack look. He chuckled at the faces you both made. I'm so weirded out about like the fact that in all essence, early on in this story, I'm gonna say this kind of like controversially or like a hot seat. I'm already shipping Q towards like the MC or like whatever. Hold up, I had to cut a part of that. I might have to be cutting a part of that dialogue because the dog was suddenly barked so loud. There's no one outside. Side note. Where am I? Oh, okay. I was kind of commenting a while ago in a bit of a hot seat explanation of like Q's, my impression of Q and like the possibility in the future of what kind of character they may be. Like I've been eyeing Q as like a potential partner first before Tamarack, and then the polyamory part is just third, even though I've been gushing over at the fact of like when will be that polyamory part happen. The developers did note in one of the patches that they might actually think of adding it. Okay. Q. The classes looked the same for every room in every grade every year. Oh, it wasn't that he couldn't see what you did, it was that he'd already seen it 110 times or more. Oo nga no. Sorry, I kind of spoke in Tagalog there. Oo nga no means, oh yeah. Um, I did say, like, he's the oldest person in the street. Like, in terms of, like, living there, because I think Tamarack was, like, just a few months earlier there. Wait. Q knew school as well as he knew everything else in Golden Grove. He kicked his backpack behind him to be up against the wall, never glancing down. There was already a bunch of other bags there, sat one by one along the far side of the room. Hold on, where is it? Okay. They were all almost completely hidden under a row of hooks that had coats and jackets and stuff cluttered over them in stacked piles. There weren't enough holders for all the layers people brought. Q. You're pretty lucky. This is your first time here, but you're only gonna have to do it once. We're gonna graduate and go to a different school next year. We'll all be new kids then. He talked while he pulled his arms out of the jacket you'd always seen him wear so far. He tossed it on the top of a rounded lump of other coats with a hook somewhere below it all. Tamarack waited, watched, and then she tugged at the end of her scarf to undo the knot it was wrapped in. She talked too. Tamarack. I told you this place was weird and never changed. That made Q at her. PFFP. Sorry, there is saliva on my mic now. I'm not gonna wipe it yet. The sound was almost exactly like the noise his backpack made a minute. Poof. Q. School is different than the entire town, Tamarack. Tamarack didn't say more words against that. She just got onto her tiptoes to sling her untied scarf over Q's jacket, building the mountain of stuff on the one little hook even higher. Q shoved his bandana deep into one of his pockets and lifted up his other shoulder. Q, you're right, that class is always the same. Seeing Q without his fluffy jacket felt like seeing a lion without its mane. He folded his arms high across his chest and gazed upon what you were starting to get was his kingdom. Yeah, it kind of feels weird without his, like, fluffy jacket. Because, I don't know. He had all the pride of a lion even without the jacket. Though Q acted like that was it for getting ready. He hadn't taken his gloves off. Was he gonna wear those to class? Tamarack held tight to the strap of her bag. It for sure wasn't going with the rest of the packs. That meant she was definitely already done with the putting your stuff away, quote-unquote, part of getting to school. Tamarack's overalls were the most, quote-unquote, over clothes she had once the scarf was off. No coat or a cool poncho or anything. The overalls were kind of short too. They didn't cover her whole legs. Her ankles had long socks and yellow rubber rain boots to keep them warm. But you had to wonder if she didn't feel cold the same way most people did. Your choice. Okay, let's see. I don't want to take my hat off, but I think I should because it's more polite. So you took all of your stuff too, you left your stuff on. I think I'm gonna take off my hat. First, you scratched a finger into your head when you put your hat up on the wall with everything else. Question mark. Good morning and welcome, students. You glanced over your shoulder. In the open doorway was another person for you to have to know. Oh, she looks so pretty! Oh. Her braids did match a few of the kids there, but she wasn't gonna be sitting in the desks with them. She was twice as tall as everybody else in the room. That had to be the teacher, Mrs. Murray. Her soft brown eyes looked down over you and your neighbors while she tapped a finger against her freckled, speckled face. That is a tongue twister. The pattern on her skin was almost like stars, if the sky was light at night and the stars were the darker part. Her rosy, pink lips parted into a smile. She inclined her chin towards Q. Mrs. Murray, nice to see you here, Mr. Q Lin. This would be a good year. Q. Yeah. Hold up. Sorry about that. There was a sound of my laptop because it needs charging. Okay. Or I hope it wasn't heard, but I guess it's heard. Back to the narrative. Q stretched the word out as far as it could go, and at the same time he opened his arms wide. He turned his head away too. He had the kind of tone your mama would have when you were 6 and she'd agree to eat the delicious dirt pies you'd made her. I've never experienced that, to be honest. Squeakily cheerful and not real. He was trying to be nice, but wasn't trying that hard. Though when his eyes were rolling away, his gaze passed over you and got stuck there. A mischievous grin tugged the corners of his mouth as the sound of his voice went from off-key to chiming. Maybe? Mrs. Murray's pencil-pointy eyebrows lifted. She blinked one time and then her own smile grew. It was shared with you and Tamarack next. Hello, I'm your teacher, Mrs. Murray. Am I right to say that you're Tamarack Bowman and Frankie second? My choice is yes, teacher. I'm Frankie. Yes, I'm MX Frankie. I still don't know how to say that. I forgot to look it up. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Murray. I'm Frankie. Hold up. Hi. There's actually a dog barking outside. I had to check it out, but apparently I can't do anything about that dog because that's our neighbor's dog. So, to the person who is lucky enough to actually hear the dog barking at the background, sorry about that. Or, you could appreciate domestic sounds that aren't really annoying. It's a good thing that the dog is pretty far, but it's still heard. Veering away from the recording mishaps and whatnot, I cannot do anything about that, so I'll have to bear with it. Where are we? I was supposed to either introduce myself or just do something. So, I'm Tamarack Bowman. I wanna do this. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Your master plan was ruined by Tamarack giggling as soon as you said it. She tried to cover up her mouth, but it didn't help hide the sound. Realizing the trick, your teacher's gaze went razor sharp. Oh no! Are you sure you're Tamarack Bowman? Sorry, I keep on saying Bowman. Or Bowman. I forgot to say it. The gig was up. No, I'm Frankie. Tamarack, the actual one, bobbed her hands in the air and twisted in place to swing her bag so that it hung behind her back. I'm the real Tamarack! That is so great. Mrs. Murray spoke sweetly in a way that was just nice. It wasn't surprised or relieved to find out the answer. She probably didn't need to ask to know who you were. Teachers knew a lot. If you'd been so kind, would you mind coming over to my desk over there in the far corner? I'd like to talk to you two before class begins. Oh wait, so Tamarack and I are the new kids in school. I didn't catch on to that properly. But now that I'm remembering things, I do think that Tamarack, I did mention a while ago that Tamarack was just a few months new before me, or a few months old in the house that they are living in currently. They were the new kid before me. Tamarack. Okay. Tamarack finally lowered her hands back down to her sides. She still bumped her bag around by pushing it up and down with her butt. It clattered loudly and Mrs. Murray pretended not to hear. You grabbed the side of Tamarack's overall shirt. Oh, okay. I honestly would just follow. You took a step closer, curious. Okay. Mrs. Murray. Thank you, both of you. She gestured lightly with her hand for you to come and left the doorway. Q turned his head to follow the teacher. More and more of his dark hair eclipsed your view of the rest of him as she walked away. When you lost sight of his face, there had been a frown on it. Aww. After she was really gone, he swung back towards you and Tamarack. Q was smirking then. Q, good luck out there. He tipped over on one foot and bent his body way down. His other leg kicked into the air. He could balance better than a flamingo. Q slipped a hand under his jacket on the hook and also under Tamarack's scarf, which was still on top of it, and dug around in the fabric. He didn't come out empty-handed. He'd gotten a hold of his favorite notebook and a pencil. Q slightly lifted his chest up and brought his one hovering foot down to earth again. The whole thing was graceful, but he followed it by wildly waving his notebook goodbye at you. And a paper fell out when he did it. Okay. Sorry about that. I misclicked. Tamarack. Tamarack squealed, trying to talk, but too fast so none of it was real words. She reached her arms to Q graspingly, like she could pick him up and plant him back where he'd dropped his thing. That didn't work either. He stepped away on the light feet, carefree, and joined up with one of the groups at the desks. They all raised their heads and waved when he arrived. He was gone, and the teacher was waiting. Tamarack squinted her dark red eyes tightly. She directed her gaze towards you because it wasn't like anyone else in the room could understand her. You gave her a look back. "Aww," Q said with a smirk. Q said with a sigh, "Not again. I want to do the scatterbrain, but with a grin." Okay. There is, isn't he funny? Isn't he great? You stared at Tamarack in disbelief over that guy. You shook your head with a frown, and you just snickered. I think I'm gonna go with scatterbrain, but with a grin. Tamarack. "This is gonna be a long, however long it is." You picked up the paper and peeked at what it said. You picked up the paper and put it in your pocket without looking. You left it on the ground. I'm gonna pick it up and peek at what it said because I mean I won't be sharing it, but or maybe I wouldn't. You know what? I wouldn't. I'm just gonna pick it up and just like fold it and put it in my pocket. You made a beeline to the tan page on the dark blue carpet and snatched it off the ground before somebody could step on it or it could blow away and get lost in the middle of a forest. You simply tucked it away. I mean, I guess it's gonna be like a mission for us or a quest if the paper just flew out into the forest. Side note, there might be like sounds of another person talking at the background. That's my parents. Well, technically my father. Speaks pretty loud, so I can't do anything about that because he's having a conversation with another person. So please bear with it. I'll try my best to like speak over it so that the narration wouldn't be lost. Okay, back to the narration. That was taken care of. Tamarack pretended to be a jack-in-the-box like she did yesterday. This time, it was by bending on her knees before bouncing straight. Her fluffy locks of hair shook around her round cheeks. "Aw, it's so cute!" Tamarack. "Come on, Frankie!" She skipped off to the teacher's desk, all smiles. You caught up to her in no time and walked the rest of the way side by side. Off in the corner on the other side of the room was the teacher's old, dark brown desk. At least the very top of the wood was dark. The inner part was a lot lighter. You could see that from all the tiny cuts and scratches over the surface. It was as far away from the desk as it could. You guessed that it was so she could have these kinds of talks without everybody else hearing the whole thing. Also, sorry, tongue twisted about a lot of the words here. Mrs. Murray didn't sit in the cool rolling chair that went behind the desk. She stayed in front and only leaned her back against the top edge. She got to talk to you and Tamarack gently, because she didn't have to push her voice across a piece of furniture that separated students and teachers. "I appreciate you coming to this meeting. I wanted to let you know a little about today, what you can expect from your first day." "Why?" Tamarack asked. "Well, this class has a unique arrangement of the students, but you're the only two who have never attended this school before. Everyone else is simply returning after a summer break."
Excusez-moi from the sounds of the doggies.
Okay, I'm gonna try and see if I could remember where we are narratively. Sorry, I keep on cutting. There really are like a lot of dogs barking because there's a delivery that is kind of confused. I tried watching. And apparently, they keep on going to one house after another. And the house that they were in a while ago was in front of ours. I'm watching them and seeing that they're, I don't know, whatever progress. Don't listen to the smothered last bit of that other part before. I think I'm safe. I'm gonna continue right now. So, fair warning, this is gonna be a really broken narrative, sort of like storytelling for me, and tidbits of dogs barking. Okay, let's continue with Mrs. Murray. I'd like to introduce you to during roll call later. I want all the other kids to know who you are. Tamarack. Oh. Tamarack flicked at the buckles on her bag. They made a clinking sound when she hit them up and a thump when they landed back down. What? Her gaze moved around too. The meeting wasn't exciting anymore. Oh, I kind of understand how she feels. To be honest, like I already kind of like guess what's gonna happen. My choice for this is you were with Tamarack. That wasn't a big deal. You were with Tamarack. That wasn't a big deal. Your teacher is definitely smart. That would help a lot. You thought you were ready for school, but you weren't sure anymore. Having your own introduction made you feel special. I'm gonna choose this one. It was gonna be so awkward, you knew it, and you were just relieved it wasn't only you. Tamara was getting it too. I'm gonna choose this one. Like, having your own introduction made you feel special. I did mention that. Straightforward, kind of extroverted, slightly brave, funny, I guess. It was like you were somebody famous. Mrs. Murray smiled approvingly at how you and Tamarack handled that first assignment. I'll make sure it goes well. The teacher slid her hand across the desktop behind her and spread her fingers out wide. In a couple minutes, I'll be telling the class to take their assigned seats. You'll have those spots for the rest of the year. I made a seating plan already, but there is a bit of wiggle room to help you get comfortable if you'd like. Tamarack's hands flew from her bag to her cheeks. That sounded like a smack. Tamarack.
Does that mean me and Frankie get to sit together because we're neighbors and friends?
Was she right? You held your breath and balled up your hands into fists, waiting to know if you'd get to be with Tamarack the whole year or not. Sorry, I giggled a bit. A twinkle was in Mrs. Murray's eyes when she finally said what you were hoping for. You thought she might have paused on purpose to make it more dramatic. Yes, I can put you next to each other.
Woohoo!
It made Tamarack explode in celebration. She popped up on one foot, pulling the other upward near her chest, and her arms went in the air.
Frankie, we're gonna sit together!
Yeah. Yeah. We've got something then. Anything else? Let's see. Can Tamarack and I... Yeah, I want to sit Q. I wish. Here. Yeah, I already know what I'm supposed to choose. They were both your house neighbors. Tamarack and Qiu had to be your seat neighbors too. Mrs. Murray was a really proper lady from what you'd seen. She didn't have one wrinkle on her fancy suit, but creases suddenly appeared around her eyes and mouth after she heard that. Aw. The lines spelled not again. Aw. No, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're getting along with Q, but there were students who wanted to sit next to him last year and didn't get to. It's their turn now. Your eyebrows went up so high you almost could have lost them. That many people wanted to sit by Q? Hold up. Okay. What was it? Okay. It was kind of rude to the teacher, but you had to turn your head right around to look at the guy you'd been talking about. He was leaning over the bunch of desks from before and still talking to those other kids you didn't know. There was a big smile on every face. Aww, aww. I mean, I guess it's fine, to be honest. I kind of, as a normal kid, like me, I honestly wouldn't know. I would probably sit as well with the person that I know in class, but I might be just like not bother if they're like with another group and just like watch on the sides. Maybe effort a bit on like talking to another person, like maybe beside me, who's randomly beside me if they aren't busy. Okay. Back to the narration. You tilted your head back where it came, but not all the way. You only moved it enough to be looking to the side instead at Tamarack. Her gaze was directed straight at you too. She gripped the strap of her bag that was swaying against her chest. Since the day you moved in, it had been just the three of you in your cul-de-sac. Even if the day you moved in was yesterday, it was the same group. You, Tamarack and Qiu, neighbors. But you weren't in your neighborhood anymore. On the outside of that street, Tamarack was exactly like you were and Q wasn't. You and her were strangers in Golden Grove now. You didn't know people and they didn't know you. Q had been there forever. And it wasn't only that, you'd already learned something on your first day at school. Q was popular. Aww. To be honest, I'm gonna just like spend time with Tamarack. So you were glad to have Tamarack. You were glad to have a friend like Tamarack even more. Someday you were going to be popular too. Nope, not that one. It didn't matter how many other kids liked him. Q was your friend too. You weren't gonna let that change things. The three of you were still friends. That was too weird. What? That was too weird. Realizing that made you sad. Well, that was good for him. You wondered how you would fit in when you met everyone else. I think I'm gonna go with this one. That's what mattered, not what other people thought of your friends. Not looking at her didn't stop your teacher from trying to talk to you. Frankie, I'm sure once you're in your seat and you'll get used to it, soon you won't want to be anywhere else. And if not, you can come talk to me about it. I honestly would just like stay in my seat. Frankie's, oh no! Frankie's face is like straight face. Like, yes, Mrs. Murray. Where are we? She didn't talk she didn't talk the desk up anymore. It was gonna have to win you over on its own or not. Wait. Well, I guess like it just means that I'm gonna have to be satisfied with whatever I have. So Mrs. Murray had to wait for you and Tamarack to stop your shared stares of surprise, and then she pointed across the floor to a couple of desks near the back that were side by side. Those are yours. Tamarack's is the closest to the wall, and Frankie, yours is the one next to that. Those are yours, and Tamarack's is the closest. Sorry, I took a little break. Tamarack.
Window seat, gonna sit at the window seat.
Tamarack happily sung herself a simple song about her brand new desk. Mrs. Murray. Besides the roll call, there won't be any surprises. It will be a regular, easy first day of class. Thank you for having a chat with me. You can take your seats. Tamarack's cheeks inflated and she pushed a smile between the two balls of air. If you're looking at the screen, the way that she just like smiles like she's a puffy, like puffing her cheeks. It's so weird. It's like I'm watching a hamster eat something. Tamarack.
Okay, let's go, Frankie.
Frankie. Bye. The teacher stayed resting up against her desk while you and Tamarack went towards your own seats. Tamarack sent quick, excited glances from the desk, then back to you over and over as you walked towards them. She chattered about how it was gonna be so fun being right next to each other and all the things you could do during the year. She beamed so bright it was like her sparkly golden hair made the sunshine that filled the room. But the grin you had on your face had to be as gleaming. The two of you might burn the place down. A clap and a call came from where you just left. Attention students, class is starting. Take your seats. Just like she said she would, Mrs. Murray was beginning the lesson. You were right in front of your assigned group of desks when she said it. The red plastic chair Mrs. Murray had pointed out before was probably really old, but it was brand new to you. You pulled it out from the tables and gave sitting in it a try. Hard, cold, slippery smooth. And the back part wasn't straight. It bent away from the bottom seat part. It felt like leaning against the top of a shiny slide on the playground. If you weren't paying attention, you might fall right off. Maybe that was the point. That was a way to keep kids focused. Tamarack was right there next your left side, by the wall and the window, just like she wanted. Past her, you could see the rustling treetops outside. with their golden fall leaves all bunched together. They kinda looked like Tamarack's puffy hair, but not as sparkly. She plopped her huge jingling, English, jingling pack on the desk. The actual bag barely fit, and she had to bundle up the strap on top so that it wasn't sneaking over into someone else's workspace. The tips of her rain boots were pressed against the black, dark blue carpet, and she tapped her heels together. It made the shoes squeak. Yeah, because it's rain boots. It's kind of funny. I mean, for the record, I don't know. I guess like it depends on what kind of rain boots it is. There are fashionable rain boots that their interior or lining inside aren't that queasy to the skin, even if you're wearing socks. Okay, back to the narrative. She was excited for her own little place in the room. Tamarack.
Frankie, we're gonna be right here for the rest of the year.
Frankie. Yep, I've got the best seat neighbor. Tamarack patted her hands against the thick fabric of the bag and giggled in time with the hits. She stayed pretty busy making a beat. You glanced out at the room ahead of you, where the important boards and teacher were. Qiu was there too, in the very first row of seats. It wasn't the same spot he'd been in before when you saw him talking to some people, but those other classmates he was sitting with were just as happy to have him there. He was hanging one of his arms across the top edge of his chair and was settled in so snugly he looked like a heavy blanket that had been thrown over it. What? Okay, he's trying to sit cool. He moved his head to the side to rest his cheek against his stretched out shoulder. Qiu somehow made himself sit even more relaxedly. When that happened, he noticed you behind him. Qiu firmly pressed down his eyebrows and pushed his mouth open a little. He wasn't there when you learned you and Tamarack would be together, and he wouldn't be there with you. Now he found out. He only looked that way long enough for him to notice that you had noticed his expression. Then your friend, a house neighbor and not a seat neighbor, lifted the corner of his mouth and sneakily waved the hand draped on the seat at you. Q's deep brown-eyed gaze darted over to Mrs. Murray, directing your attention to her. His eyes kept moving right into a dramatic roll that went all the way around. Ah, yeah. It wasn't hard to imagine him saying, "Teachers, huh?" or something like that. For a minute, you could picture what it would have been like if he had been right next to you. But he couldn't face you forever. It was class time, and you were left staring at a tiny ponytail on the back of his head. It was okay. You were close enough. Mrs. Murray patiently waited for people to get settled. Every seat had a kid in it, and final words were said before the room faded into a short silence. That's when things changed from you being just someone in some room to a student who had to listen to a lesson. Hello, class. Thank you all for being here today. Welcome to your first day of 5th grade. She gave a round of applause. Normally, the people sitting and watching were the ones who clapped for the person standing in the front, but you guessed Mrs. Murray did things differently. We're going to have a lot of fun this year, and you'll learn a lot too. But also, you're the big kids on campus now, so I'm counting on you to set a good example for the rest of the students here, all right? Yes, Mrs. Murray. Around half of the class answered her. Part was in a loud cheer, and others were bored grumbles. The teacher accepted both moods warmly. Thank you. Let's start with the roll call then. She crossed past the desk to get a folder off the little cubbies in the corner. She got that and left her stiff brown jacket behind. The teacher flipped the folder open as she stepped back into the center spot. The cozy sweater made everything about her seem softer. Oh, okay, I like her sweater. You know the story. I'm going to shout everyone's name in alphabetical order, first name first. When I call your name, raise your hand and say, "Here, Mrs. Murray, I'm so excited and happy to be at school with you today." That time, almost the whole class started to chatter. There were snickers shared between friends, when whiny outcries of "we can't do that," and somebody even booed. Wow. I applaud that one who booed. I mean, for the record, that might not be me. Okay, just say "here." Will work. And now I know you're listening. Her soft voice had a jovial kick. She had fun with her job. Let's begin. Your first name started with F. It probably wasn't gonna take long for her to be calling you. That was kind of cool. You get to be at the front of that line and wouldn't have to wait forever. Mrs. Murray went through each of the A kids and it just kept going from there. And then you were next. You knew not just because she was on your first name letter, but because her keen eyes were on you before she even said anything. Frankie second? Um I didn't say that. Okay, I'm gonna do this. There are so many options. Like here, I'm here. Hi, I'm Frankie. I'm not here, Mrs. Murray. Here, Mrs. Murray. I'm so excited and happy to be at school. Or all caps. Here I am. The stuttering here. Here. You shakily raise your hand. You put your hand up without talking. You folded your arms. You some glower. You froze from the pressure. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna shout. Here I am. You were the one to get a response from the class that time. Hushed chuckles came from the cluster of other kids. The teacher gave her approval with a nod. You sat up tall in your seat after a job well done. The roll call rolled on after your turn. Qiu Lin? I didn't do her sort of voice there. Mr. Qiu Lin didn't really raise his hand. He just popped a thumbs up from his laid-back lean. Here, Mrs. Murray. That worked though, and your teacher moved on. Tamarack Bowman? Tamarack's arm shot up in record time. It had already been wound up and ready for that moment.
I'm Tamarack, that's me.
It wasn't exactly what she was supposed to say, but Tamarack got an A for effort. Mrs. Murray continued with the last of the names. Once every person in a stiff red seat had to turn to say they were there, Mrs. Murray gave you and Tamarack a real introduction to the class, the one she had warned you would be coming. It talked about how you just moved to town, and what people were supposed to call you and everything. Mrs. Murray must have asked your mama and Tamarack's Oni and Opa to know all that. You were glad it was all the right stuff. What if she had just made things up because she didn't really know you? That was the end of the not really teaching us anything except names part of class. Mrs. Murray took a paper in the folder out of the flap and moved it over to the other side. Mrs. Murray, please take out your pencils and notebooks now. I'll be going over our plans for the year and what will be expected of all my students. Your mama had a pack of fresh notebook with perfectly smooth pages that didn't have a single smudge for you to use. You had grabbed something to mark it up if you needed to. It was a glitter pen, a plain old pencil with a cute eraser, colored pencil, a pen. I kind of want to use a gel pen. I mean, glitter pen is fun, but the mess is not Frankie approved as of this moment. It might be Qiu a bit, but I think Qiu would go for the marker. I'm gonna go for a gel pen. You held it with your right hand. I would have preferred left because I'm a right hand person. I've never tried being ambidextrous as well. That was the one that felt best today. Ow! Ow! Shoot. Sorry about that. Tamarack leaned over her bag to be as close as possible. Her eyes were squinted and set right on Mrs. Murray. She started clicking her shoes together again, even faster than before. If her legs beat any quicker, she might turn into a one-girl powered motor and drive the desk around the room. Tamarack was definitely eager to get the information being told. But there wasn't a single piece of paper or pencil anywhere on her desk to take notes. Maybe she only had to listen to know. Over at the other group of tables, Q's face was pressed against his right fist that he had propped up against the desk. He was writing slow, lazy lines with his left hand in a plain spiral notebook. It wasn't his special one. Oh. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm overanalyzing the personalities as of current for Tamarack and Qiu. I don't know. Yeah, there is like distinctiveness in their like childhood personalities right now that feels like I I've seen it before with others, and I've done it as well. I think I've done one from Tamarack because of excitement. I've yet to remember who I saw the same way Q had, because Q is having a hard time like taking notes of anything, even like linear or comprehensive sort of like organized thoughts. As of current, it's not that bad because he's a kid. Of course, his focus is everywhere, but maybe there is an outlier. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't honestly properly know about it. That was your neighbors, and then there was you. Okay, class was easy stuff and you went along with it. School was simple, you didn't need to even really think about it. You did your best to keep up as much as possible. You tried to following along, but it was hard and you did well, you didn't pay attention. No! That's so bad. You didn't pay attention to the teacher. You knew you couldn't do it anyway. I think I tried this one. You tried to follow along, but it was hard and it didn't go that well. I'd be lying. I easily got things and made quirky comments, so I might do this or this. School was simple. Mrs. Murray talked about the subjects should be covering, upcoming holidays and activities, the ways students would get graded, school rules, and even more. You weren't sure she'd ever stop having new things to tell everyone about until she cut herself off. She said something about when parent-teacher conferences might happen and paused there. Q? Q? You snuck a glance away from the front of him. You couldn't help it. He'd totally lost that droopy pose. Instead, Q was hunched over a page and it was from his special notebook then and he was scribbling in a hurry. Yeah? The answer was as breezy as ever. He didn't try to sound like a student being called out by a teacher. He was polite enough to pull himself up to look at the person speaking to him. Am I going too fast? Or is there anything else I can do differently? You'd been very uncomfortable. The pencil dropped and clattered on the desk. Both Q's hands hovered over the piece of paper. He stared at it unsurely as if he didn't know if it was suddenly too hot to touch or not. For a minute, Q didn't know what to do. He blinked and then... Oh my god! Rereading part! For a minute, Q didn't know what to do. He blinked and then he started to talk again. Slowly. Thoughtfully. No, it's alright. He leaned fully against his chair again and threaded his fingers together primly while placing them over the page. From your spot at the back, you could see the edge of an easy smile on the side of his face. And even if you couldn't, you would have been able to hear the smirk in his voice. I wasn't writing down what you're talking about. I'll get to that later. Don't worry over it. Eyes went wide at his boldness and a few kids were brave enough themselves to giggle at Q's comeback. Mrs. Murray's usual smile was faint, but it was there. Well, let me know if you change your mind. I will, thanks. She stopped the little break there and tapped her folder with the back of her hand to get the students' attention once more. Nothing but normal school stuff happened for the rest of the time. It was a lot like your old classes in other places. Golden Grove didn't have a secret way of teaching kids that the rest of the country had never heard of. You figured it would be that way, but seeing a regular lesson happen made it clear what you'd been dealing with. And like all the classes you'd had before, that one was over eventually. But before the teacher let anybody get up, Mrs. Murray went all around the room to drop piles of paper on the few different groups of desks. She explained how they were stacks of homework sheets and everyone had to take one packet with them and bring it back finished tomorrow. Then she said bye to the students and it was okay to leave. Okay. It sounded like it wasn't gonna be hard. She was your new nemesis. Oh my god, a stack of assignments. How big is the stack for you to make her your nemesis? Mrs. Murray was pretty smart. You liked her a lot. Out of all the teachers you'd had, she was the best so far. Out of all the teachers you've had, She was the worst. Teachers all seemed the same to you. You were just glad to be out of the class. She seemed alright. Maybe you had to warm up to her. Hmm. Do I want to establish liking her a lot or just liking her somehow? I guess it sounded like it wasn't gonna be hard. You couldn't care that much. I I might choose this just because of like I my reference for the almost repeated personality is gonna be scratched so much it's gonna hurt. That I felt like that was the right option for a straightforward sort of like confident or extroverted kid. Okay. School meant homework. That was just how the world worked. Right next to you, the spell that kept Tamarack totally locked onto Mrs. Murray during class broke. The teacher went over to her desk and Tamarack turned to you. She stared at the gel pen in your hand. Actually, it was the opposite. She was looking at the hand that was holding the gel pen. And she kept staring. The way you had it was really interesting to her, but she couldn't tell why at first. It was tougher to figure out than anything in class had been for her. She used all her brain power and it clicked on the light inside her head.
Oh, that's your other hand. The left one. I use my right.
Her open right palm was suddenly only a tiny bit from the tip of your nose. You almost had to cross your eyes to focus on it.
My Omi and Oppa and Mom and Dad use their right too, but you don't. That's amazing.
Yes, ambidextrous choice. I'm not left-handed, I can write with both of them. I'm gonna do this, I'm not gonna read anything else. Tamarack used both of her own hands to slap the tabletop and shoot up from her chair. She peered down at you over your desk, still sunk in your seat. That was the first time you ever had to look up to see Tamarack. She was so small you didn't think that would have ever happened.
What? What? That's real?
She bent her arms back and under the legs of a closed folding chair but stretched her neck out forward past her back into your space. Tamarack had gone from high up all the way down to the tabletop level and was watching every twitch of your fingers.
How did you do it? Put the gel pen in your other hand.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna cut this sort of story short. It's sort of an interesting part because like it's my first time to... This is weird in a sense. Because I've never been in a scenario where I'm like highly questioning a left-handed person. I guess I just accepted people with left-handedness like early on in my life, but you know, Tamara was a bit of like a unique case of like observation sort of like kid. So whatever her interests are is kind of like sometimes becomes over the charts or over the top. So going back on the main menu, are you sure you want to consent? No. Did I save? Yes, I did. Okay, I'm gonna resave it again. So I'm gonna back to the main menu. So that's about it for now. At least for now, we're on part 6. I never expected this to reach part 7 because apparently this entire demo is still updating. Side note, if you've reached the ending of this, like I'm sorry for like all the crappy cuts in between, like, and even the sounds in the background that might not have been covered by my voice. That is, according to how I listen to it, is kind of louder than necessary. This is our Life Now and Forever demo part 6. I don't know how far they're gonna like update this demo because the prologue is already like hours long. Like some of them are like hours already, so like 6 hours of gameplay. I mean, at least like 4 or 5 hours already of gameplay. This is, I guess I'm just really, I don't know what to feel about the length of this prologue and this demo, about extension of their progress or the updates. I'm just saying, like, I'm kind of tired narrating a bit of the dialogue or the narration in between. So in the near future, or if they ever encounter this video, I don't know how to properly be non-nega about narrative choices in between, but I wish they had a way to shorten some of the expressions or descriptions to be more concise. Because for me, I mean, I guess it depends on the person. But for me, it feels like it's sort of coddling or a bit, excuse me, bless you. Um, it's sort of coddling to have too much descriptions of something. However, as a part-time amateur sort of beginner writer as well, of the fiction kind, I do believe I understand their sort of choice in being overly descriptive on some areas, especially here in the prologue. I don't remember encountering this in the first hour life. Maybe I haven't, or I just breezed over some of the descriptions. Um, I know to myself I have to record my gameplay of that or play it in my streams. Anyway, I will be ending this video for now. Please comment anything that you wanna like share information about this, and if you liked it, feel free to like it or just share it to others if you wanna do so. But if not, it's fine. Um, Thank you so much for listening to the demo part 6 of Our Life Now and Forever. Toodles!